Hey, how's it going, traders? In this video, we are going to go over float. Now, what is it and how do we use it effectively for day trading? So all that and more, coming right up. Before this video begins, how come you're not in our Discord? That's crazy. We have our 25K challenge where I'm turning 2,500 into 25,000. We have a daily watch list that comes out every single day of the stocks I'm watching and the key catalysts behind them. We have day trade, swing trade, crypto, real estate, everything you can imagine. Links to our live streams every single morning when we go live. Also throwing a holiday sale for those of you who want to join the PC team. We have a sale on all three different types of plans. Anyways, guys, let's continue on in the video once you're already in our Discord. Now, breaking float down into simple terms, simple economic terms, float is the overall supply. Hypothetically, if you are selling, say, cookies, you have 10 cookies, that is a float. You have a supply of 10, and I want to come and buy them for $1. But you said that is too cheap of a price, I'll sell it to you for $2. So I will then bring up my price. I will buy all 10 of those cookies for $2 for a total of $20. Now, I have all of the float because I took all the supply and I bought them. You're also content because I came up to your price and you sold them at the price you wanted to. Stocks are no different. Now, hypothetically, there's not just 10 shares available to buy. There's often hundreds of thousands of millions, sometimes even billions, depending on what stock we were trading. Now, personally, I like to see stocks with a float of anywhere from 1 million to 20 million shares of float. I don't generally trade stocks with under 1 million shares of float. Now, before we really break down what float is, we have to break down first what shares outstanding means. Shares outstanding means every single possible share of the company that is unrestricted and restricted shares combined. Now, let's first go over restricted shares. If I get hired by, let's say, Verizon, and I get 10,000 shares of employee stock, I cannot sell those restricted shares as easily as it were to be to log on to your Robinhood or Webull or Thinkorswim account and click sell and I can liquidate the account. I often have to stay with the company for 12, 24, 36 months usually to be incentivized to stay with the company longer. Then if I work for Verizon, I could then liquidate that position. But those are restricted shares because you're restricted on how you could sell them. And now, when it comes to unrestricted shares, those are shares that I trade. Those are what the retail traders and the institutional investors can buy. Now, let's say a stock has a float of 1 million. That is, let's say 100,000 of it is, simple math, 500,000 is restricted shares, meaning that's company shares, CEO shares, blah, 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 all that. Now, there's only 500,000 shares left. And those are the unrestricted shares, and those are the shares that we get to trade. So the supply for these stocks is 500,000. Now, it can get even more competitive if there's a lot of institutional or long-term ownership, because hypothetically, if someone wanted to hold on to the stock and didn't want to sell it for, they're holding on to 100,000 shares. Either a institutional investor or whatever it may be. Now there's only 400,000 shares of available float that we can trade. As you can see, the float will dwindle down, and the less supply that there are, the more volatile the stock is. Hypothetically, if it comes all the way down to 100,000 shares of float, and someone wants to sell those, but they don't want to sell them at a certain price, they want to wait for that price to increase, they can do that. That's how a stock increases, where the seller meets the buyer up here. Hypothetically, if there's a lot of buying pressure, say there's 10 million shares of volume. Now, if there's only 1 million shares of float, that's a 10 times float rotation, meaning each share has exchanged hands at least 10 times. That's crazy. Now, you can see float rotations as high as 10, 25. I'm not sure if I've seen much higher than like 30 to 50. That's just absolutely insane. Now, hypothetically, say that there's a company with 1 million share float that gets a huge contract with another company, just say NVIDIA, a smaller chip company scores a contract with NVIDIA. And now their 1 million share float, there's 10 million shares of buying pressure. You can see how hard that's going to be and how easy it's going to increase in price if there's 10 times the amount of buying pressure as there is float. Now, putting it to a real-world scenario, if you go to a football game, they're not going to sell their limited supply of hot dogs for $1. They're going to sell them for $3, $4, $5. Why? Because they know they're going to sell them, and they know there's only a limited amount. So they're going to get as every penny that they can. Now, when it comes to stock, if there's a company with a really good catalyst that is increasing in price, it's going to continue to increase in price, driving those sellers out because they're not content with what the price is at. And as long as there's enough buying volume, that float is going to continue to increase the price. Now, I look for, when it comes to day trading, a float of anywhere from 1 to 10 million shares. That's just kind of, I'm not super keen on that. I find that I can trade, Tesla with 1 billion shares. I can trade with, any type of float or any type of float rotation. But just know when it comes to float, the smaller the float, the smaller the supply, and the more volume, the more increase in price. Standard economics. Now, an easy way to get the float is click the first link in my bio, join the Discord, and all you have to do is type in float. For example, I had BLU I was trading today. So I just type in exclamation point float, capital BLU, type it in, and the stock bot in my Discord will tell me the shares outstanding. That is unrestricted and restricted shares. The float, which is unrestricted shares, and it'll also give me some insider ownership and institutional ownership. Up here, I did Tesla. As you can see, they have almost 1 billion shares outstanding. Now, a company can change the overall float by doing a stock split or a reverse stock split. You see this often. They can do a secondary offering, selling more of the restricted shares out to the open market to raise capital. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm speaking gibberish. We do have a full A to Z library, a lesson library if you guys are interested. So that's breaking float down into simple terms. Again, I don't like to trade stocks with a flow of under 1 million shares of float just because it can be sometimes even too volatile. You see a lot of these penny stocks who have done multiple reverse splits one after another to meet compliance, where their float is so low, it's way too volatile. You find there's an increase in slippage. That means the difference between the bid and the ask. You could find that a stock won't complete its move because it's just way too volatile to enter. Again, that's kind of why I trade stocks above $5 to kind of mitigate that. But once in a while, I'll break my rule and I'll trade a stock that's $3 or $4. Not often, but I usually trade stocks above $5. But there it is. Float isn't something I look for every single day because I can trade a blue chip stock with 1 billion shares of float, but I can also trade a penny stock with 1 million shares of float. So there is your answer for what is float. Hopefully I answered all of your questions. If you have any other questions, please consider DMing me on Discord or just leaving the comments below and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning in this video and I'll catch you in the very next one. Peace, guys.